Hello everyone, and welcome back to TVP Wildlife, the channel where the hidden wonders of nature come alive. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and join our growing community of wildlife explorers. Today, we're not venturing into the depths of the ocean, nor soaring high into the skies. Instead, we're going somewhere much closer, so close, in fact, that you've probably stepped on it 1,000 times without ever realizing the kingdom you were crushing beneath your shoes. Yes, today, we're going underground, into the secret empire of the ants. This episode is divided into 5 epic parts, and in part 1, we'll explore the hidden empire beneath our feet. We're going to uncover what ant colonies look like, how they're built, and why they're considered some of the most successful civilizations on Earth. So, grab your explorer's hat, keep your eyes wide open, and let's shrink ourselves down to ant size. Because it's time to step inside the colony. The hidden empire beneath our feet. Picture this. A warm summer afternoon. You're sitting on the grass, sipping a cold drink, and you notice a small trail of ants marching by your foot. At first glance, it looks like nothing, just tiny insects going about their business. But if you were to follow that trail, down into the soil, you'd enter a world so elaborate, so bustling with life, that it rivals human cities in both complexity and organization. Beneath the ground lies an entire underground metropolis. Ant colonies can stretch several meters deep and cover areas as wide as a house. Inside, you'd find nurseries where the larvae are carefully tended, storage chambers stocked with seeds or insect prey, tunnels and highways that allow rapid movement, and even waste dumps to keep the colony clean. Every chamber has a purpose, every passageway a direction, and all of it is constructed without blueprints, architects, or construction crews. But how do ants achieve this? How can creatures barely a few millimeters long create structures that support millions of individuals? The secret lies in their collective behavior. Ants are nature's engineers. When worker ants dig, they don't just move soil randomly. They follow simple rules, digging, carrying, and depositing grains of earth, and yet, through the combined effort of thousands, order emerges. This is what scientists call emergent behavior. No single ant knows the entire plan. But together, they build wonders. Some species construct vast networks that resemble cathedrals beneath the earth. Leafcutter ants, for example, can create colonies with chambers the size of basketballs, linked by tunnels stretching for tens of meters. If you poured liquid metal or plaster into one of these nests and let it harden, you'd reveal a structure that looks like a sprawling, organic sculpture, proof of architectural genius on a miniature scale. And these cities are not random. Air circulation, temperature control, and even moisture regulation are built into the design. Some ant nests are ventilated with complex chimneys that keep the interior cool, like natural air conditioning systems. Others build their colonies near water sources, but high enough to avoid floods. It's as if each colony is a living organism, adapting to its environment with perfect precision. At the heart of this empire lies the Queen's Chamber, a heavily guarded sanctuary where the most important individual resides. The Queen is not a ruler in the human sense. She doesn't issue orders. Instead, she is the biological engine of the colony, the one who lays the eggs that sustain its population. In some species, a queen can live for decades, far longer than the workers who surround her. She is the beating heart of the colony, protected at all costs. If danger threatens the nest, soldiers and workers will form a living shield around her. Without the queen, the colony's future fades. With her, the empire thrives. Step back into the tunnels, and you'll notice that the colony functions like a living machine. Ants are constantly moving, carrying food, transporting larvae, clearing waste, and defending the nest. From the outside, it may look like chaos, ants bumping into each other, zigzagging across the soil. But there is order in the chaos. Ants use pheromones, chemical signals, to mark trails and communicate. A single ant finding a breadcrumb can lay a scent trail on her way back to the colony. Soon, dozens follow, then hundreds, until the trail becomes a bustling highway of food transport. To us, it looks like magic. How do they all know where to go? But to ants, it's simply chemistry at work. Some species even build bridges and rafts using their own bodies. Army ants, for instance, can link their legs together to form living chains. allowing others to cross gaps or rivers. In flood-prone areas, ants weave themselves into floating rafts, with the queen safely in the center, ensuring survival against nature's fury. The diversity of ant colonies is staggering. In South America, leafcutter ants farm fungus in underground chambers, cutting fresh leaves and using them as compost for their crops. In Africa, driver ants march in massive swarms that devour everything in their path, forcing even lions to step aside. In Australia, some ants build towering mounds that rise like skyscrapers in the desert, capturing the sun's heat to warm their colonies at night. Even in your backyard, pavement ants create neat little piles of sand, marking the entrances to their tiny subterranean homes. Each species has its own blueprint, its own culture, if you will. Together, they've colonized nearly every corner of the planet, from rainforests to deserts, from city sidewalks to mountaintops. Wherever you go, chances are, ants were there long before you, and they'll be there long after. What makes the world of ants so fascinating is that it challenges our human perspective. We like to think of ourselves as the pinnacle of organization, of society, of civilization. But ants were building cities long before humans dreamed of stone walls or skyscrapers. They've been farming, waging wars, trading resources, and forming alliances for over 100 million years. When you kneel down and watch an ant trail, you're not just looking at insects. You're looking at the descendants of ancient survivors, creatures who have outlived dinosaurs, adapted to every climate, and mastered cooperation in ways we're only beginning to understand. And the colony, this hidden empire beneath our feet, is just the beginning of the story. Because life inside an ant nest is far more than tunnels and chambers. It is a drama of roles, responsibilities, and destinies. Each ant is born into a purpose, and together, they weave the fabric of their society. Eggs, larvae, and pupae. Every ant's life begins with a tiny white egg, laid by the queen deep in her chamber. From that moment, the future of the egg depends on the care of the workers. They move the eggs constantly, shifting them to warmer or cooler parts of the nest, keeping them safe from mold, and even licking them clean with their antimicrobial saliva. When the eggs hatch, out come the larvae, blind, worm-like creatures that look nothing like adult ants. The larvae cannot feed themselves, so the workers provide pre-chewed food, protein from insects, or in some species, sugary liquids. Some larvae are even fed more than others. Not by chance, but by design. Because in an ant colony, diet determines destiny. With the right food, a larva may grow into a queen or a soldier, while others become humble workers. It's almost like a royal lottery, except the tickets are chosen by the colony's needs. Too few workers? More larvae get standard meals. A threat outside? More larvae are raised into soldiers. It's a living system of balance, controlled not by any single ant, but by the collective will of the colony. After the larval stage comes the pupa, where the ant undergoes metamorphosis inside a protective casing. When it finally emerges, it takes its place in the bustling world of the colony, ready to work, fight, or reproduce. At the center of this story is the queen. She is not a ruler in the way human monarchs are. She does not command, does not punish, does not give orders. Her power comes from her biology. She is the mother of all. A single queen can lay thousands, sometimes millions, of eggs over her lifetime. In some species, she can live for decades, far outlasting her workers, who may survive only weeks or months. Her survival ensures the colony's survival. Protecting her is the first law of ant society. The queen begins her life in a dramatic way. Born with wings, she joins a nuptial flight, a swarm of virgin queens and males rising into the air. There, she mates with several males, storing their sperm in a special organ called the spermatheca, which allows her to fertilize eggs for years, even decades, without ever mating again. After the flight, she rips off her wings and burrows into the soil, starting a new colony from scratch. In the early days, the queen is alone, raising her first batch of workers without help. She doesn't eat, she relies on the reserves stored in her body, even digesting her own wing muscles for energy. When the first workers finally hatch, they take over the duties of feeding, cleaning, and foraging. allowing the queen to focus solely on laying eggs. From then on, her entire existence becomes one of endless reproduction. Hammer and wrench the workers, builders, farmers, and nurses. If the queen is the heart of the colony, the workers are its hands and feet. They make up the vast majority of the population, and they perform every task necessary to keep the colony alive. Nurses care for the eggs, larvae, and pupae, feeding them, grooming them, and moving them to different chambers depending on temperature and humidity. Foragers leave the safety of the nest to gather food, whether it's a dead insect, a seed, or a crumb dropped from a picnic table. They lay down pheromone trails to guide their sisters back to the source. Builders constantly dig and expand the tunnels, carrying soil grains like bricks in a never-ending construction project. Cleaners remove waste, corpses, and dangerous fungi, keeping the colony hygienic. Farmers in some species, like leafcutter ants, tend to fungal gardens, cutting fresh leaves and carefully placing them in special chambers to cultivate their crops. What's most remarkable is how flexible these roles are. A worker doesn't have a fixed job for life. Instead, ants often change roles depending on age or the needs of the colony. A young worker may start as a nurse inside the nest, later become a forager outside, and perhaps end her life defending the colony as a soldier. It's a dynamic system, always adapting, always balancing. Not all workers are the same. In many species, some ants grow into soldiers, larger, stronger individuals with powerful jaws or even specialized weapons. In some species, soldiers have massive heads and jaws designed to crush intruders. In others, soldiers block entrances with their armored heads, acting as living doors. Some even spray formic acid or other chemicals, turning their bodies into tiny chemical weapons. When danger threatens, soldiers are the first line of defense. They fight off rival ants, predators, and invaders. Sometimes, they fight wars so brutal that entire colonies are wiped out. Yet, their sacrifice ensures the survival of the queen and the rest of the colony. Day and night, the colony never truly sleeps. There's always movement, always activity. Workers cycle in and out of tasks. Foragers return with food, larvae demand care, and soldiers stand ready. But what's fascinating is how this entire system operates without a leader. There is no central brain. No ant knows the big picture. And yet, through chemical signals, body language, and instinct, the colony functions with astonishing precision. It's what scientists call a superorganism. The colony itself behaves like one giant creature, with each ant acting like a cell in the body. Alone, an ant is vulnerable, almost helpless. Together, they are unstoppable. Not all ants get to live long, purposeful lives. Male ants, often called drones, are born with one mission: to mate with a queen during the nuptial flight. Once they fulfill this duty, their life is essentially over. Within days, sometimes hours, they die. It may seem tragic, but in the grand design of the colony, every role has meaning. The males sacrifice their lives to ensure the queen can found the next generation. When you step back and look at it all, the queen, the workers, the soldiers, the drones, you realize that an ant colony is not just a collection of insects. It's a living, breathing community, where cooperation is the key to survival. Each ant's life may be short, perhaps only a few weeks, but together they achieve something timeless: the continuation of the colony. From the smallest worker to the mightiest soldier, each life is a thread in the fabric of the empire. And as you watch them scurrying in and out of their nest, remember, what looks like chaos to us is, in fact, harmony, the language of chemicals. Imagine living in a world without words, without voices, without written language. How would you coordinate with millions of others? For ants, the answer is chemistry. Ants communicate primarily through pheromones, invisible chemical signals that carry messages. A forager that finds food will lay down a trail pheromone on her way back to the nest. Other ants detect the trail with their antennae and follow it, reinforcing it with their own scent. The more ants travel the path, the stronger the signal becomes, until the entire colony mobilizes like a living army. But pheromones do more than mark food. They can signal alarm when danger is near, identify nestmates versus strangers, mark boundaries, or even regulate behavior inside the nest. Some ants can release a panic pheromone that sends workers rushing to defend the queen. Others use calming pheromones to reduce aggression among their sisters. In a way, pheromones are the internet of the ant world, a network of invisible messages connecting millions of individuals into one cohesive whole. Now here's the mind-blowing part. Individually, ants are not particularly intelligent. A single ant might wander aimlessly, make mistakes, or get lost, but put them together, and suddenly, their behavior becomes intelligent on a collective scale. Scientists call this phenomenon swarm intelligence. It's the same principle behind how flocks of birds turn in perfect unison or how schools of fish avoid predators with flawless coordination. Ants, however, have taken it to another level. Consider how they find the shortest path to food. No ant knows the map of the land. But through pheromone trails, random exploration, and reinforcement, the colony as a whole discovers the most efficient route, an algorithm so effective that computer scientists have copied it to design better traffic systems, telecommunications networks, and even artificial intelligence. In other words, ants were solving optimization problems millions of years before humans invented mathematics. Now, let's talk about farming. Humans often pride ourselves on being the first species to cultivate crops. But ants have been farming for at least 50 million years. Take the leafcutter ants of Central and South America. These ants cut fresh leaves, not to eat, but to use as fertilizer. They carry the leaf fragments back to their nest, chew them into pulp, and carefully place them in underground chambers where they grow a special fungus. This fungus is their food source, cultivated with precision and care. But it doesn't stop there. Leafcutter ants weed their fungal gardens, remove harmful molds, and even use natural antibiotics produced by bacteria on their own bodies to keep the crop healthy. They are, in every sense of the word, farmers. Meanwhile, in Africa and Asia, other species have domesticated insects called aphids. These ants protect aphids from predators. And in return, the aphids provide a sweet liquid called honeydew. Ants stroke the aphids with their antennae, and the aphids release the sugary droplets like cows giving milk. Yes, ants invented animal husbandry too. But farming isn't the only thing ants mastered long before us. They are also warriors, strategists of the battlefield. Some ants wage wars on rival colonies, sending thousands of soldiers into battle. Army ants are legendary for their massive raids. They form endless rivers of bodies, overwhelming anything in their path, from insects to small mammals. Their coordination is terrifying, their efficiency absolute. Other ants specialize in slavery. Slave-making ants raid the nests of other species, steal their brood, and raise the captured young as workers in their own colony. These enslaved ants grow up thinking the raiders are their family and work for them as if it were natural. It is one of nature's most chilling strategies. Yet it demonstrates the complexity of ant societies. Even defense strategies can be brilliant. Some ants build barricades at their nest entrances. Others deploy chemical warfare, and a few even sacrifice themselves by exploding, releasing sticky, toxic substances that glue enemies together. Yes, some ants are suicide bombers, giving their lives for the greater good. Remember how we explored ant nests in part 1? Let's revisit that, but this time with a focus on their genius designs. Certain ants build towering mounds with internal ventilation systems that regulate temperature and humidity. Others construct floating rafts during floods, weaving their bodies together so tightly that the colony becomes unsinkable. Army ants create temporary bivouacs out of their own bodies, forming walls, ceilings, and chambers using nothing but living ants linked together. In each case, the architecture isn't static, it's alive, flexible, and adaptive. Imagine if our buildings could reshape themselves depending on the weather, the population, or external threats. Ants already do this, effortlessly, every day. So why are ants so successful? Part of the answer lies in their division of labor, their communication systems, and their cooperation. But beyond that, it's their ability to innovate and adapt that makes them dominant. Ants have survived for over 100 million years, across mass extinctions, ice ages, and the rise and fall of dinosaurs. Today, there are over 14,000 known species, and possibly twice as many still undiscovered. They live in deserts, jungles, mountains, and cities, They farm, they herd, they fight, they build. In a sense, ants are not just insects, they are civilization itself. In miniature, watching ants forces us to ask big questions. How can creatures with such small brains accomplish so much? How can societies thrive without leaders? Without written laws? Without money or politics? Perhaps the secret is simple. Ants live for the colony, not for themselves. Every decision, every action, every sacrifice is for the greater good. No ant can survive alone. But together, they achieve the impossible. It's a lesson we humans might need to remember. Cooperation, adaptation, and unity are not just survival strategies, they're the foundation of success. The eternal wars. Step into the forest, and beneath the leaves, you might stumble upon a scene that looks like something out of an epic movie. Thousands of ants clashing, jaws locked, bodies piled high. This isn't random violence, this is organized warfare. Unlike many animals, ants don't just fight for food. They fight for territory, for resources, and sometimes for sheer dominance. Colonies are like nations, and their borders are constantly tested. Army ants are the most feared warriors. They march in vast rivers of bodies, devouring everything in their path. No nest, no creature, no obstacle can stand against them. Their raids are so powerful that entire ecosystems pause when army ants are on the move. Even birds and mammals follow the swarm, not to fight, but to feed on the creatures fleeing in terror. In South America, colonies of leafcutter ants wage wars against each other. These wars can last days, even weeks, with thousands of casualties. The battles are so intense that the ground is littered with severed ant heads and limbs. A battlefield in miniature. In North America, the tiny yet aggressive pavement ants engage in spring wars. Thousands of workers from different colonies meet in open spaces, grappling and tearing at each other in massive street battles. To a human, it looks like chaos, but to the ants, it's the ancient struggle for survival. For ants, war is not an accident, it is a way of life. What's remarkable is not just the scale of these battles, but the strategies behind them. Ambush tactics. Some ants hide near enemy trails, launching surprise attacks when foragers least expect it. Siege warfare. Others surround rival nests, cutting off food supplies until the colony starves. Chemical weapons. Certain species spray acid, venom, or sticky substances, disabling their enemies before finishing them off. Sacrifice. Some ants willingly explode, releasing toxic glue that kills both themselves and their enemies, turning their own bodies into weapons. It's not just brute force. It's strategy. It's sacrifice. It's war on a scale we rarely appreciate. Among the most shocking behaviors in the ant world is slavery. Yes, some ants are raiders, enslaving the young of rival colonies. Slave-making ants attack nearby nests, steal the pupae, and bring them back home. When those pupae hatch, they grow up thinking the raiders are their family. They work, they forage, they defend. A stolen generation serving their captors without ever realizing the truth. It's a brutal system, but an effective one. The raiders expand their workforce without raising their own young, while the enslaved ants live their entire lives unaware of their stolen heritage. This practice is so widespread that some species have evolved to depend entirely on slaves, unable to survive without them. In the face of such violence, some ants have developed extraordinary defenses. Doorkeeper ants. In certain species, soldiers with oversized heads plug nest entrances with their bodies, acting as living doors. Invaders can't get past unless they literally remove the guard. Exploding ants. Found in Southeast Asia, these ants rupture their bodies when threatened, releasing sticky, toxic fluid that entangles and poisons attackers. Their sacrifice saves the colony, at the cost of their lives. Trap jaw ants. With jaws that snap shut faster than any muscle in the animal kingdom. These ants can decapitate enemies, or launch themselves backward like spring-loaded warriors. Each strategy, each adaptation, shows the relentless arms race of ant warfare. But it's not all blood and battle. Ants have also mastered the art of alliances. Ants and aphids. As we saw earlier, some ants farm aphids for honeydew, protecting them like cattle. The aphids provide food, the ants provide security. Ants and trees. In the tropics, certain trees provide hollow thorns and nectar for ants. In return, the ants protect the tree from herbivores, even stripping leaves from competing plants. These ant plants rely on their tiny guardians to survive. Ants and fungi. Leafcutter ants' fungal farms are not just crops, they're a partnership. The ants provide food and care, while the fungus evolves to grow only inside the ant colonies. It's a symbiosis millions of years in the making. Ants and butterflies. Some butterfly larvae secrete a sugary liquid that attracts ants. In exchange, the ants protect the caterpillars from predators. In some cases, ants even carry the larvae into their nests for safekeeping. These alliances reveal a softer side of ant societies, a reminder that survival is not always about conquest, but also about cooperation. Wars and alliances are two sides of the same coin. Ants fight, they conquer, they enslave, but they also farm, protect, and cooperate. Their world is a mirror of our own, nations rising and falling. Battles fought over land and resources. Alliances forged for mutual benefit. The difference? Ants have been playing this game for over 100 million years. They've perfected the art of survival through both violence and cooperation, proving that in nature, no strategy is too strange if it works. The power of cooperation. If there's one word that defines ants, it's cooperation. An individual ant is almost helpless. It cannot survive alone for long. But together, ants achieve the impossible, constructing cities, farming crops, fighting wars, and defending their queens. Humans, too, thrive through cooperation. Every building, every city, every invention is the product of countless people working together. Yet unlike ants, we often forget that our strength lies in unity, not division. Ants remind us that when individuals put aside selfishness for the greater good, entire civilizations flourish. Ants are masters of survival. They've lived for over 100 million years, surviving mass extinctions that wiped out dinosaurs. How? By adapting. In deserts, ants forage in blistering heat, timing their movements to avoid death by the sun. In jungles, leafcutters farm fungus in vast underground gardens. In cities, pavement ants thrive between cracks of concrete, feasting on human leftovers. Wherever change occurs, ants adapt. For humans, adaptation is equally vital. Climate change, shifting economies, and global challenges test our resilience. Ants show us that survival doesn't belong to the strongest or the smartest, it belongs to those who adapt. Ants take from the environment, but they also give back. Leafcutter ants recycle plant matter into fungal gardens. Ants aerate soil, spreading nutrients that help plants grow. Some even disperse seeds, unintentionally planting forests. In a way, ants are silent gardeners of Earth, maintaining ecosystems for millions of years. Humans, by contrast, often exploit nature without balance. But if ants, tiny as they are, can sustain their world for 100 million years, shouldn't we, with all our intelligence, learn to live in harmony with the planet? One of the most fascinating things about ants is that they have no central leader. The queen doesn't give orders. No ant controls the colony. Instead, decisions emerge collectively from the interactions of thousands, even millions, of individuals. This is swarm intelligence. Simple rules followed by each ant lead to complex, effective solutions. Humans often rely on leaders, governments, and systems of command, but perhaps ants remind us that collective wisdom, the combined input of many, can be more powerful than the voice of one. Decentralized systems. From online communities to scientific collaboration, prove that we too can harness this principle. Ant societies are filled with paradoxes. They wage wars that devastate entire colonies. Yet they also form alliances that span species. They enslave, but they also nurture. They destroy, but they also build. In this, ants are a reflection of ourselves. Human history is filled with wars and alliances, oppression and progress, destruction and creation. The lesson here is not that conflict disappears, but that survival requires balance. Just like ants, we must learn when to fight and when to cooperate, when to compete and when to ally. It's humbling to realize that ants may outlive us. They've been here long before humans, and chances are, they'll still be here long after. But what if our civilizations could learn from theirs? What if our cities functioned with the efficiency of an ant colony? What if our agriculture mirrored their sustainability? What if our societies embraced cooperation over division? Perhaps the ants are not just survivors, they are a model. A blueprint for civilizations that endure. As we conclude our journey, let's return to that simple image, a trail of ants on the ground. To most people, it's nothing, but to those who look closer, it's a story of evolution, cooperation, conflict, and survival. Ants are more than insects. They are builders, farmers, warriors, and caretakers. They are both ruthless and nurturing, destructive and creative. They are tiny titans that shape ecosystems, outnumber us 1,000,000 to 1, and quietly remind us of truths we often forget. The next time you see an ant, don't just brush it aside. Remember that beneath your feet lies a hidden world, a world of lessons, waiting to be learned. And that, dear explorers, brings us to the end of our 5-part series, The Secret World of Ants. From their underground empires to their daily lives, from their genius societies to their epic wars and alliances, and finally, to the lessons they hold for us, ants have proven themselves to be among the most extraordinary creatures on Earth. Thank you for joining me on this journey here on TVP Wildlife. If you enjoyed this series, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, so you won't miss our next adventure into the wonders of the natural world. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and remember, even the smallest creatures can teach us the biggest lessons.